Hey guys, Tom Cecilia Jr. here, A.K.A. Mustached. I'm here to review the movie A.K.L. I know it's once again been a while, but that's just how it is with these movie reviews. Come in always late, but I always deliver eventually. Anyways, this movie starts off with some computer info about this A.K.L. that is being used by the military, by some military force, to be weaponized. And A.K.L. stands for Attack, Exploration, and Logistics. And this was meant to be designed to be a war dog. Meanwhile, we cut to a bike race where we meet our main character, Miles, who ends up getting hit off the road and ends up losing off on a turn. But he seems a bit distracted by this girl named Sarah, who, we all know where that's gonna go already. Who gives him an extra chain to win the next race. So, after he wins, he gets invited to this party by this bully slash party rich guy named Sam. So we cut back to the facility where all of a sudden a siren is going off and it is put out that A.K.L. the dog has escaped. So they send out drones and various cars to go find it, or him as he's later referred to as. So, this Sam character kind of confronts Miles. He's trying to pretend to at least be a nice guy. Shows him to a flamethrower. Miles is not even interested. He goes to where these bikes are. He once again meets with Sarah, who's pretty much like, yeah, kinda, I'm just here. And they hang out for a bit. So afterwards, Sam is like, trying to cut in a little bit as well. And then he's like, whatever. So, Miles ends up leaving, and then he says to his father that the only thing he's good at is racing, and that he didn't do good at school and all this stuff, while the droids are continuing to look for the A.K.L. unit. So this scientist guy, Cendric, is getting contacted by this bigger authority lady who's like, you gotta find this thing, or it has to be what we expect it to be, or whatever it is, she says. So, while that's going on, Sam invites Miles to do a trick to blast off in popularity, and he does do at least one stunt, and then Sam pushes him to do another, and then when he bails, he gets the entire party of people to leave him behind with just gas and a little in his bag of clothes. So he's left there all alone out in the middle of desert land, and he hears a noise and he checks it out, and eventually runs into the A.K.L. unit, in which he ends up managing to magically make his bike work just at the right time so that he can get chased by the A.K.L. unit. However, after one of this little chase sequence, A.K.L. ends up tripping and falling and getting itself impaled on some pipes after using this rocket booster thing that it has. So Miles heads off over to it, seeing that it has unleashed its visor part and it shields its red eyes, and it's ready to self-destruct. But seeing that Miles is trying to help him, he lets down his guard, he stops the self-destruct, and considers placing Miles in control of him. So, he calls his dad and leaves the general message. again, we see that A.K.L chooses to make him the admin. So Sam edits Miles' video to add sound effects, and Sarah becomes immediately worried, demanding for his location, which Sam does offer. So A.K.L starts to move on his own after Miles helps him out, and Miles helps to refill him. So A.K.L is able to use Miles' phone and his memory banks and all that stuff to essentially talk or learn to say at least one thing to Miles after he removes the muzzle part. So Miles uses his motorcycle to essentially play with A.K.L for a bit, and the Jones finally find the dog. And the scientist that I mentioned earlier wants to see what A.K.L sees, so he's watching on now. And Sam makes his way over there, calling out, and A.K.L gets all up on that car. But Miles gets Sam to essentially stop. And Sarah's worried about, like, oh, you know, we worked for him because he was super rich and stuff, and he owned us, and yeah, it kind of goes to that place. So, the two still remain hanging out after that whole situation is dealt with. Sam and Miles dance with a little romantic help from A.K.L. But nonetheless, Miles and A.K.L essentially helped out Sam in a way. Or, sorry, they help Sarah, I should say. I miswrote. And, you know, Miles convinces her in return to help A.K.L, and they go to this gas station where he helps refill their gas, gives them some money, and she starts to talk about how her mom's worried about her and how Sam gives her location. Meanwhile, she goes to do some art. That's her thing. So A.K.L helps her out with the lines and copies the image. So he then decides to show the two of them where he came from. And they're kind of going, huh, that's a thing. So the scientist wants to bring in Miles with the A.K.L unit since they have bonded, and he saw this now at this point. So Sarah goes on ahead, and Niles sort of leaves as well, and then the A.K.L unit starts to attack Sam, who gets over there. And he has him get dragged over, then gets him to stay there after Sam leaves. So, due to discussion, he decides to tell his dad, and the dad believes the two of them, even though he never actually sees the unit himself. But Sam arrives back on the scene where he left, where A.K.L was left with not only his team, but a gas can and a camera to record everything there. In my notes, I did write Sam does do the Walking Dead whistle, which is. I know that's probably used elsewhere, but that is where I heard it the most familiarized. So again, that's why I wrote it in my notes that way. Anyways, the father tells them to essentially turn in the A.K.L unit back to where it belongs. But Miles wants nothing to do with that. So meanwhile, Sam drops the gas and gets the A.K.L unit to move forward, and then pulls out the flamethrower that he had from before to burn the A.K.L unit. So Miles rushes out as Sarah pulls out her phone device and sees the actual live recording. I guess it's somehow being live recorded. And he leaves the bonding device behind. So Sam does successfully burn the A.K.L unit, though. So, as that's going on, the father gets to his door after hearing a knock, and then sees one of the operatives sent in by the scientist who wants to get A.K.L.'s location. So, while that's going on, Sam and Miles and Sarah follow the A.K.L.'s coordinates that he sent, and while that's going on, the father manages to pull out a bow on the guy that had him with a gun earlier, and now this Crane. Meanwhile, this other Crane guy uses this laptop to essentially call the cops on the main scientist. Meanwhile, Sam and Miles start to work on fixing A.K.L in this like printing area, like you can print out like metal parts or whatever, I guess. And after they're done, they magically kiss because they didn't have much to bond over, but you know, you gotta have that turn, I guess. Anyways, their new location gets found out pretty quickly by the military. So Sam and Sarah and Miles hide. Oh my god, I kept writing Sam. Anyway, A.K.L does get turned back on and does help attack, and Miles does help out as well as he can. So A.K.L remembers the last thing that happens and changes his parameters to terminate Sam from doing what he did the last time. So Sam and his team are heading out. They're going to another party, and A.K.L arrives shortly on the scene to start hunting him down. So Miles and Sarah arrive after, are trying to, and Sam turns on the he's trying to run essentially from A.K.L because he was found. Anyways, the more drones arrive and they start to attack him. A.K.L that being obviously. An army arrives on the scene as they are all now captured, and the doc gets denied from the A.K.L units. So Miles wakes up in this facility, and this doctor says that he has nothing left to lose, so that is why he's willing to go all on this. And Sarah is brought in on this laser grid where A.K.L is now forced to attack if she leaves the little grid she's in. However, she manages to trick the dog out and grab at least an item. She grabs like a pen or something along those lines and starts to use her ability to art to essentially sketch out the leaf, and based off of the air thing she's doing, it makes A.K.L remember, and that helps them to later flee the scene. And then Miles goes off on his motorcycle or a motorcycle that just happens to be there with A.K.L in tow. So a helicopter is now chasing them outside. But they both crash super hard going down a mountain. So A.K.L is trying to stay despite Miles trying to get him to run. But he does eventually start to move out, and the drones are attacking him, and they're trying to erase his memory, and it gets ready to self-destruct once again, and this time does so. Uh, so the army catches up to Miles, and then things smooth over as 6 weeks pass, and Sarah and Miles now have a real wolf dog now. Uh, and it shows like via the phones that the code is rebuilding A.K.L. And while they are at the beach, that being Miles and Sarah, the dad had sent them over that device that they had left behind all that time ago. And it shows that A.K.L gets turned back on. And that was the movie A.K.L. Very ending, very akin to, what was it? The Iron Giant. The self-sacrifice, and then it's like, oh no, it's dead, to, oh, it's alive, via one part, obviously. The connection isn't as grandiose. There is some little hiccups, like the silly moments of like, oh, why would the dad even believe? Like, oh, why would the dad believe them? And then things of that nature. The relationship between Miles and Sarah, obviously very just put so simple. There isn't really much complexity to it. It's like, oh, if she just likes him and he just happens to eventually like her for reasons, and then that's it. Uh, Basic bully rich character. This movie, if I could describe it more easily, it would be saying this movie is very safe. And that's how I feel about it overall. So I'd give the movie a 6 out of 10. I think it could have done even a 5 out of 10. I feel it's halfway decent. And that's my review of A.K.L. And if you enjoyed it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out that link in the description. I'll head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.